Thank you for joining me today for this presentation of the Scanco Dashboard Label Printing Program. Currently displayed are key topics and times when those topics are discussed. The first 6 minutes covers how the program is used on a daily basis, and everything thereafter covers designing labels and program settings. First step in the process is to log into the dashboard, then check to make sure that you're in the correct company, then move to the Labels tab. Selecting multiple items to be printed. We've included a Select All button for printing all items in the grid and a Deselect All button. You can select multiple rows by holding the left button down on your mouse and drag the mouse over the rows in the grid. Or you can hold the Control button down on your keyboard while clicking items in the grid to choose multiple items to be printed. Prompting for number of labels per item. If you hold the Control button down on your keyboard and click on rows in the grid, you can highlight multiple rows and then change the print quantity method to prompt. After pressing the print button, review the information that will be printed, and you can enter the number of labels to be printed for that item. As you cycle through the items, review the information, enter your quantity of labels to be printed. After addressing all items for the number of labels to be printed, the process is completed. The process for printing one label per item is incredibly simple when the print quantity prompt option is set to just one. Choose an item by clicking on a row in the grid. Double check to make sure you have the correct label design. Make sure you're going to the correct printer, and then simply press the print button. The print dialog will display the item being printed. You can choose the print button or the print all button if you've selected multiple items. Printing labels equal to the quantity on hand is as simple as selecting the items that need to be printed, then changing the print quantity option to quantity on hand, and the quantity on hand column in the grid will display the number of labels that will be printed. After pressing the print button, review the information that will be printed and choose your print or print all button. Printing labels for a receipt of goods. On this example, I'm on the Receipt of Goods tab. And by adding a filter at the bottom of my screen for my receipt number, I can filter off all items except for the items for my receipt. By holding the Control button down on the keyboard and clicking rows in the grid, I can choose items that I want to be printed. This is the first time I've used this tab, so I have to choose my printer and my label design. The programming will remember my printer and label design for the next time I use this tab. During the printing process, I could choose quantity received as my print quantity, but in this example, I will use the prompt method, so I can indicate that I would like to have one label for the first item, because it is a box of 10, and then I need 25 labels for my second item, so that I can put one label on each item. Changing views on each tab. Many of the tabs at the top have multiple views. By changing the view, you can print different types of information on your labels. Each view will remember the last printer and label design and print quantity method that was used. Label Design Preview Window. The new Label Design Preview window can be enabled by clicking the arrow on the far right side of your screen. There are 3 tabs. The first one is the Template tab. Any information shown in green means that there is a column in the grid for printing that information. Any information displayed in red is unavailable for printing because there is no column available. The Text tab shows the information that will be printed on your label, and the Preview tab shows the actual label design that will be printed. By choosing different rows in the grid, the information displayed in the preview window changes. One thing you'll notice is that the lot serial number is displayed when there is a lot serial available. In this example, the Template tab shows the lot serial number sub, and the Text tab shows the information that will be printed. If I switch to an item that doesn't have a lot serial number, you'll see that the Text tab shows the lot serial removed. And just like the Text tab, the Preview tab will show the lot serial number displayed or removed, depending on what type of item you're printing. Resorting data using the column headers. By clicking on the field name for each column, you can resort the data displayed, ascending or descending. All of the columns are available for resorting the data. Creating filters. In this example, I will start out with 333 rows in my grid, and I will add a filter on an item code by typing in the item and pressing the Add button. Now my grid has 57 rows. To expand the filter even further, I can add a second column to my filters. I will choose the lot serial number to filter off of, and I will key in serial number 55. And I'll add that, and now I have one single row. Creating a range filter. In this example, I will start with 57 rows, filtering off of my item code. By adding a greater than or equals to filter off of serial number 20, I now have 36 rows. If I add a less than or equal to serial number 29, I reduce the rows to 10 rows for those serial numbers within that range. The label designer. First, I'm going to start off by going to the Edit and then choosing Label Designer. Under the File menu, I have the option to create a new label or open any existing label design. I can also save my changes or save as to save my changes to a different label design, or I can choose Print to run an example of my label off to a printer. When I create a new label, I have the option to include either a TXT file for Zebra printer language or an XML design so that I can easily design my own label here in our user interface. To begin your design, set the width and height near the top of the screen. You can use any of the columns displayed simply by highlighting one of the fields, clicking Add Field and Data to display both, or you can choose Field Name to only display the field, or choose Field Data to display the data in that field. In the designer, you have the ability to move elements around as needed. Click the Add Barcode button to add a barcode to the screen, and you can also include the text below the barcode if that is required. Any of the fonts available on your system are available to be used in your label design. Another nice feature is the ability to change the angle of elements on your label. You can rotate the elements around 180 degrees if required. Removing an element is as easy as pressing the Remove button or pressing the Delete key on your keyboard. Adding objects. The Add Object button presents the new Print Object screen with a Type drop-down with 6 options. Fixed objects are used for multiple purposes, including adding static information to be printed and keyboard prompts. In this example, I will include the words company name and press save, and now the words company name will print on every label. The keyboard prompt setup is explained later in this video. Barcodes can also be created for multiple purposes, including adding static information to be printed and keyboard prompts. In this example, I will include a numeric value that is my company's registration number so my customers can scan that during receiving. Press save and this barcode will print on every label. When adding an image, you will need to press the Select Image button and then choose the graphic file and press Open. You can adjust the width and height before or after pressing save. You can drag the logo with your mouse to arrange the graphic on your label. When adding a box, you can adjust the width, height, and thickness of the line before or after pressing save. You can drag the box with your mouse to arrange the box on your label. H-line is for horizontal lines. You can adjust the width and thickness of the line before or after pressing save. You can drag the line with your mouse to arrange the line on your label. V-line is for vertical lines. You can adjust the height and thickness of the line before or after pressing save. You can drag the line with your mouse to arrange the line on your label. Easy label designs. I will now create an easy label design by pressing the Field and Data and Add Barcode. Then I'm going to add an object which is going to be a horizontal line to separate that information from my next field. I'll highlight another field and press the Add Field and Data button, then the Barcode button, and the Add Object button to create another horizontal line. I can repeat this process for as many fields as is required for my label design. After completing your label design, please remember to go to the File menu and choose Save. Editing field names. For this particular example, I want to separate the warehouse code and the item code, and I'm going to change quantity on hand to just QTY. I'm also going to adjust the receipt date and the price code. And now I will save my changes, and I'm going to exit the label designer and take a quick preview of my label design changes. Now we can see the spaces that I have added, and the quantity field is changed to QTY. Design as XML. Print as zebra design. When you enable the Print as ZPL checkbox and choose the correct density for your label design will be converted to zebra print language during printing. This checkbox should only be enabled if you have a zebra printer. The conversion to zebra's print language means the zebra font is used in place of system fonts. Default values. The Label Designer's Defaults menu helps expedite the label design process. Here are what each of the defaults can do. New X location indicates how far in from the left edge you want new objects to be added. In this example, my default is set to 0.1 or 1/10 of an inch from the left edge. When I add an object to my design, it is located 1/10 of an inch from the left edge. If I change my default to 0.3 or 3/10 of an inch from the left edge and add an object, that object is 3/10 of an inch from the left edge. I want to also point out that you can always edit all the fine points of each object by highlighting the object and adjusting the data contained in the prompts on the right. Another nice feature is the format prompt on text objects. You can enter the letter C for currency, and the program will add a $sign in front of the data to be printed. New Y offset indicates how far below the last added object you want new objects to be added. The distance between my first and second object is 0.005. I will change the offset to 0.01 and add a third object. And now you can see the distance between the bottom of the second object to the top of the third object is wider than the first and second objects. New text height indicates the amount of space you want objects to consume or how much space is below the object. If you use a large font, you will want to adjust the new text height to allow enough space for your font. For example, if your font is size 14, then set the new text height to 0.15 or 0.16. I will now adjust the new text height from 0.165 to 0.3 and add a new text object, and you can see the distance below the new text object is much greater than previously added text. Default to label width allows objects to run from the left to as far to the right as possible. If you disable this option and add an object, the space consumed is the space that is required to print that object. I suggest leaving the default to label width option enabled unless you need to add multiple objects to the same horizontal space on your label. New text object font. By pressing the Select Font button, you can choose all of the defaults for the font that will be used when adding text objects. New barcode object's 1D height indicates how tall the 1D barcodes will be when added. If I change the setting from 0.5 or a half inch to 0.25, now you will see that the first barcode is 1/2 inch tall, and the second barcode added is 0.25 or a 1/4 inch tall. 2D barcode width indicates how tall and wide the 2D barcodes will be when added. 2D barcodes allow multiple pieces of information to be included in a single barcode as shown here. The important thing to remember is that the programming that will scan the barcode needs to be able to break the string of data down into multiple pieces and then know how to use all of the individual pieces during data validation. Keep in mind, you can control the amount of space consumed on the label by adjusting the data contained in the width and height prompts on the right. The default barcode font can be assigned from the drop-down. code 128 is most common. Keep in mind, UPC barcodes are numeric only. Include text. When enabled, all 1D barcodes will include the text below the barcode. The font below the barcode can be assigned. Here I am showing different fonts on my first and second barcode. Adding keyboard prompts. Keyboard prompts can be created for the user to enter additional details to be printed. The keyboard prompts will be presented during the printing process. To create keyboard prompts, go to Edit, then Label Settings. Choose the Prompt Substitutions tab in the DashPrint configuration utility. Click the Add button to start a new keyboard prompt. The ID field will be the substitution that is used in the label design file. Do not include the $ like you would in the label design file, and keep the ID as simple as possible, and do not include spaces between words. Use an underscore if more than one word is required. The name field can be more descriptive, and the description field can contain a full description of what this keyboard prompt is for. The information contained in the field labeled prompt is what the user will see during printing. I suggest typing a directive for the user in this field. Adding keyboard prompt substitutions to your label designs. If your label design is an XML file, choose the Add Object button, and in the text field, add a static object that will be printed even when the keyboard prompt is not filled in during printing. Press Save and arrange the object on your design. Then choose the Add Object button, and in the text field add the substitution you created and include the $. If the Is Global checkbox is checked, then whatever is entered into the keyboard prompt will print on every label. If the Is Global checkbox is unchecked, then the user will be able to print unique information for every item that is printed. Please remember to press Save before exiting the DashPrint configuration utility. Please note that if you include the static text and the substitution in one field on your label design, and the user does not fill in the keyboard prompt during printing, the programming can remove the entire field if you enable the Strip Empty Substitutions option. You can also include a barcode for your keyboard prompts if required. During the print process, you will want to choose the prompt method from the Print Quantity dropdown. After pressing the Print button, you will have the keyboard prompt on the print labels screen. Enter data to be printed and press Print to receive labels with the data entered. Multiple keyboard prompts. In this example, I have created a second keyboard prompt that is not global, which means I will receive a prompt for every item that will be printed. If my label design only includes one of the keyboard substitutions, I will only receive that one keyboard prompt during printing. If my label design includes multiple keyboard prompt substitutions, I will receive multiple keyboard prompts during printing. The global prompt will be filled in once, and the line item prompts will be presented once per item that is being printed. In this example, I will enter 1 of 4 as my box number for this item, and 2 of 4 as my box number for this item. If your label design is a Zebra print language design, your options include designing your label in an external design program like Zebra Designer, Label Matrix, or Bartender. We have also included many templates in which you can switch out one or more of the fields for the static text, substitution, and barcodes. Or you will have to write the Zebra print language by referencing Zebra's ZPL2 programming guide, which can be acquired online. One important note about Zebra printer language design labels. In order for the DashPrint programming to tell the printer how many labels to print, the Zebra print language PQ line needs to contain the substitution $NO underscore LBLS $ in capital letters. That substitution is replaced by DashPrint to tell the printer how many labels to print for each item. This particular template is a Zebra label design, so it shows all of the Zebra printer language required to print the label. You can see an example of the label on the right, and all of the Zebra printer language in the middle. and all the fields available for printing are shown on the left. You can take any of the fields available and add them to the label design, or edit out a label design to replace fields that are not required. In this example, I will include the extended cost field to display the extended cost for my item. Every time you make a change, press the redraw button to see the change that was made. Now I'm going to change this particular field so that it says color to match what the category indicates. I'd like to move this particular field up below the color field, so I can do that by changing the area where it's located in the design. This particular field isn't required on the label. Now I've removed a couple fields and I've left those as placeholders that I can use later on within the label design to add additional information if required. For this particular field, I'm going to rename it the vendor item code. Hit my redraw button and we can see our changes have been made. Many types of edits are possible, including making your fonts taller by changing the numeric values within the Zebra printer language. You can also make the field wider by changing an additional number. If I include the caret sign FB400, 3, Zebra printers will automatically allow 3 lines of data to be printed at 400 dots per inch. This particular line requires more dots per inch. I'm going to change my 400 to 600 and hit the redraw button to see that I've dropped down to 2 lines of information to be printed. To finish up this video, I will explain the 4 remaining tabs in the DashPrint configuration utility, which is located in Label Settings under the Edit menu. Please note, some of the options in these screens only pertains to Scanco SkyPrint. I will explain the DashPrint options now. On the Settings tab, Strip Empty Substitutions can be enabled to stop objects from printing when no data is available for that object. An example would be when your label design has the word bin and then the substitution all on one line. If the item being printed does not have an assigned bin, this option will remove the entire line and not print the word bin since there is no bin data to be printed. Disable auto-selecting all lines in the grid. When disabled, every row in the grid will be highlighted for printing. When enabled, you can choose the rows to be printed by clicking on them. Clear all the selected lines in the grid after printing. When disabled, all items that are printed will remain highlighted. When enabled, all the rows in the grid will be unselected after printing. Please remember to save after making changes to these settings. The Services and Printers tab and Users and Warehouses tab are used by Scanco support to diagnose issues and allow for printing from the Sage server to remote printers. If Scanco has created records in this screen, please do not delete them. The last tab to discuss is the Substitutions tab. Creating a substitution requires an understanding of SQL statements and Sage's database structure. An example of a situation when a substitution would be created is if the grid does not contain information required for your label because the information required is in a different Sage module. In this situation, a secondary SQL statement can retrieve the data during printing. The SQL statements are complex to create, but powerful resources when needed. In this example, I needed the account key from the AP or Accounts Payable module, which is only in the vendor table. During purchase order label printing and receipt of goods label printing, I can use the purchase order number from the grid to select the vendor number from the purchase order header table, and then use the vendor number to get the account key for my label from the vendor table. In this example, I needed the extended description from the CI or Common Information Extended Description table. I had to join the item master table to the extended description table using the extended description key that is included in both tables. This allows me to use the item code from the grid to get the extended description key from the item master table and then use the extended description key from the item master table to link to the extended description key in the extended description table, and then get the data contained in the extended description field for my label. Please do not delete any data on the Substitutions tab, and contact Scanco if you require help programming a substitution. This concludes Scanco's presentation of the DashPrint programming training. Thank you for your time.